Welcome to Politics in View, brought to you by the New National Star. I am Christine Telfa, your host on the show, and with me today is a very, very prestigious guest. I'll let him introduce himself.
My name is Barrister Dr. Mainasara Kogo Umar. I'm an international analyst on developments and nation builder.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us today on the show.
Thank you.
Now, with politics, with elections in view, with politics around the corner where there's a whole lot of hassle in the country, and with the ongoing campaigns we've seen from major political parties, what observations do you have concerning their campaign strategies and their styles?
Well, fundamentally speaking, the politicians have missed the basic beginning. The beginning is that you should appreciate that politics is a means to an end and not an end itself. Politics is a means towards entrenchment of good governance, entrenchment of robust developmental giant strides by the respective political aspirants. And then political parties are the vehicles. And then the political aspirants are normally the passengers. So political office is something that is sacred there, and that is the ultimate objective, that is the ultimate place to go. So when you look at the positions of the Constitution, fundamentally speaking, under Section 14, subsection 1 of the Constitution, it says sovereignty belongs to the people. In other words, all the political power play, the people are the prestigious brides that should be campaigned upon. But in doing the campaign, the law itself decided, the Constitution under Section 153, to bring about an independent National Electoral Commission. This independent National Electoral Commission is to serve as an umpire, in other words, to serve as the administrative machinery for the conduct of the elections. And the umpire itself, the wisdom of the lawmakers decided to bring in what is called the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act will be the one that will bring about the rules and regulations regarding the do's and the don'ts in the political activities. And under the Electoral Act, so many provisions are there. For example, when you take the provisions regarding sections 29 that talks about the procedure, the processes under which candidates will emerge from the aspirants at the level of parties, they will emerge and compete. And then we have passed that level. And then when you take the provision of section 94, for example, of the Electoral Act, it clearly talks about the prohibition of campaign on the basis of sentimentalism, on the basis of cleavages of tribal, religious, sectional, or what have you. As a matter of fact, campaign based on such type of primordial considerations repugnant to the position of the Constitution, because the Constitution under sections 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, under sections 21, 23, and 24 prohibits doing anything that will really show you as being biased in favor of one particular tribe, one particular religion, one particular section, or what have you. Principally speaking, the Constitution is trying to entrench the motto of the Federal Republic of Nigeria under Section 15, subsection 1, that says unity and faith, peace and progress. But you see politicians violating this to the gallery, and then issue of the provisions of prohibition on the use of excessive funds, excessive money, that one is there. Even when you take the provision of Section 97, for example, that talks about the limitation, the time when you should even start the campaign. They have been campaigning long ago before even the decision. And there are so many other areas regarding the areas whereby eminent persons have come on board. This peace committee, this Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka committee, this committee under Abdul Salami Abubakar, trying to midwife peace so that you will be able to have it in peace, in decorum, and in order. All those things that have been distinct are essentially the responsibilities of the citizenry under sections 21, 23, and 24 for them to develop ethics of good sportsmanship, ethics of thinking above or thinking of the nation over and above your personal selfish interest. So if politicians have developed the ethics of discipline, the ethics of nationalism, patriotism, if you are looking at it as their own responsibility towards entrenchment of good governance, then they will respect the provision of sections 221 down to 228 of the Constitution that talks about the methodological way of which the campaign activity should go on, that talks about how you should really rationalize campaign spendings, that talks about campaign operations, party discipline, party arrangements. All those things are already there. We have excellent assemblage of rules and regulations in our own legal system. We have them in the Constitution, we have them in the Electoral Act, but deficiency in the ability of the politicians to eschew personal interest in favor of sportsmanship, so that we will be able to have it all. That is what is bringing albatross. You can see situations whereby some political parties will be prevented from use of certain venues in certain states. These are really contrary to sportsmanship, but I do not believe the politicians. An average politician in Nigeria is seeing politics as a vacation, is seeing politics as a profession, is seeing politics as where he can invest and recoup proceeds when he eventually gets into office. And that is the reason why you will see, even for you to become an aspirant, you have to cop out serious, unimaginable millions and pay to buy a form to indicate that you are interested in going to a particular distance. And that is the beginning of it. From where we now turn it into capitalist, contractocratic type of investment drives with the interest of recouping one in office, you are implanting corruption there from the beginning, which is contrary to Section 15 subsection 5 of the Constitution that says all members of the government, that the state must fight all forms of corrupt practices and abuse of power. So if the state shall fight all forms of corrupt practices and abuse of power, then it is necessary on the side of those political power players to show example. Because if at the level of during the period electioneering time like this, you are not practicing politics without bitterness, then that translates into the type of leadership you are potentially bred to govern the nation with. And that is the reason why you have governmental agencies all fighting the dissent, especially the issue of arson, attacks against opponents, and this. They are fundamentally unnecessary. Politicians should think of themselves becoming statesmen. Statesmen are those that are putting their own consideration, interests, and aspirations lower the national interest. Anywhere your own consideration conflicts with national aspiration, you allow national interest to prevail. You should think of yourself as a vicegerent of God to come and represent God in entrenching national justice for the betterment of Nigerian and for the betterment of humanity, bearing in mind that if Nigeria gets it correct, the entirety of Africa and indeed the Black world will get it excellently right.
Wow. You have truly spoken like an advocate. Earlier you talked about bodies that have been put in place to make sure these elections are carried out properly. So INEC has been held accountable on several fronts. How do you think they are capable? Do you think they are capable of championing the elections come February?
Well, they are capable, but they are not capable. They are capable in the sense that they are called Independent National Electoral Commission, as provided under Section 153 of the Constitution. But they are incapable because there are certain powers paradoxically given to them, which in the practical sense is beyond them. For example, when you take Section 1 up to Section 8 of the Electoral Act, it says that the Independent National Electoral Commission should be responsible for registration, designing, printing, custody, security, distribution, and coordination of voters' registration cards, voters' cards. Now, that one is there, and Independent Electoral Commission is there, but unfortunately, because they are following it like a zombie tradition based on how it has been, 24 years now, or 24 years, yes, after the establishment of Independent National Electoral Commission, or even 25 years, they are still galloping with this temporary voters card and permanent voters card. I think they should pass that level. We should reach a level whereby, as you are standing to register, you should be able to get your card permanent. There shouldn't be anything like temporary or permanent. And then INEC should be able to really work out the possibility of straight ahead, all wholesome, absolute electronic election, since they have been given the privilege under the Electoral Act that money will be made available to them 1 year before the election date, and federal government has been up and doing that. Another problem has to do with the provision of Section 65 of the Electoral Act that says INEC is the one responsible for organizing everything, including the security apparatus. INEC is the one under the control. For example, on election day, the INEC officer is the one in charge of apprehension of whosoever commits offense. Even if the police and the military or paramilitary there apprehend somebody, they hand over to INEC. It is INEC that is. So that one too is wrong, because INEC do not have police. INEC do not have DSS. INEC do not have any security apparatus. INEC do not have firearms to be able to quell any unexpected kind of emergency. Under Section 212 to 214 of the Constitution, the responsibility for internet security is exclusively that of the Nigeria police. And where the police is incapable, and 17 to 219 says, other security and parasecurity agencies can be deployed to complement the provision of the support of Nigerian police, which is in consonance with Section 153 K, L, and M of the Constitution. So that one too is another area that the government should look into. The relevant security agencies should be up and doing. Don't leave it to INEC, because INEC do not have the mechanism. The same thing with the power of prosecution, which the Electoral Act says is under INEC. It's equally wrong. You cannot leave it under INEC, because under Section 150, 147, and 174 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the responsibility of prosecution is that of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, and at the state level for Commissioner of Justice and Attorney General and Commissioner of Justice at the respective state level. So relevant governmental agencies must take it in the picture of collectivism. It should be seen as every person should discharge his responsibility. In a situation whereby, for example, look at what is happening in southeastern Nigeria and some parts of southwestern Nigeria. Arsons, lootings, burning of INEC offices, even to some extent affecting the lives of some security officers. This should be unacceptable. This should not be the responsibility of INEC. All the nation should mobilize its own security architecture for the protection, security, and beefing of serenity of the INEC offices nationwide. It should be the responsibility of all the other things, not the responsibility of INEC. The same thing too, as much as possible, when you talk about appointments of INEC national electoral officers. For example, the year 2022, 26 resigned. I mean, not resigned, their tenure expired, and then the government replaced them. I think the Electoral Act should be amended so that government which has come on board on the banner of one political party, it shouldn't be the one to appoint a national electoral officer. There should be a mechanism whereby competent statesmen that are of blameless character, that are of stainless integrity, competent statesmen that are not having any affiliation with any party or any governmental interest, should be the ones that should manage INEC, that should be the one that should manage INEC at the topmost level of becoming national electoral officers. And at the same time, too, concerted efforts should be made to really cop out the extent to which international bodies will be interfering in our electoral matters. For example, this issue of every candidate should carry himself zombie to Chatham House, for example. You go there and they present your credentials, talk about your manifestos and the rest. All this is irrelevant. Your credentials and competence and whatever is it should be deposed to the citizenry, because the sovereignty belongs to the people under Section 14, subsection 1. You should come and campaign. And then most of them are not even campaigning on issues. Most of them are not campaigning of issues. INEC should be able to really work out a mechanism whereby all the communities, all the societies, groups, civil societies, local communities should be able to have symbiotic agreements or what do you call it, agreements in principle with the political aspirants regarding what are the deliverables, what are you going to bring on board on the table when we are elected. And then another thing INEC should present also is the need for INEC to be able to be organizing elections for recall of non-performing elected officers. There are a lot of areas where INEC is independent, but there are a lot of areas where INEC is dependent. That is the practical reality.
So speaking on the preparedness for elections, we can see that the country has a bit of insecurity going on at the moment.
Yes.
Do you think this will hinder the elections, and what other things do you think, INEC or the federal government should put in place to ensure that this election in February takes place?
Yes, Section 14, subsection 1 of the Constitution says that security and welfare, Section 14, subsection 2, I beg your pardon, says that the security and welfare of the citizenry is the primary responsibility of government. And by the government there, you think about government in the trinity context of federal, state, and local government. The president under section 130 of the Constitution is the chief executive officer of the federation and is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And all components of the armed forces, talking about the main components of National Defense Council, National Security Council, and the Nigerian Police Council under section 153 K, L, and M of the Constitution, repositories under the president's control. So the president should be up and doing to really see to it that on no account should we condone insecurity in any length and breadth of the federation. The president gave an order that insecurity should end by the end of December last year. Unfortunately, insecurity has not ended. We expect to see the president acting beyond giving pronouncements of directives. The president should be up and doing to be really charge them to see. If we continue based on the traditional way that politics will come, some people will create havoc, some people will cause arson, intimidation of opponents, burning of places, even killing of some people and their equipment and the rest. It's unfortunate if we allow that to continue as a tradition in Nigeria, because it will dent negative image under section 19 of the Constitution regarding the entirety of Nigeria. We should see the possibility of probably, if the president can talk to the National Assembly before the election now, we should establish National Anti-Corruption Court, National Election Offences Court. We need this as courts of summary trial. Courts of summary trial whereby you will go and file a case. Maximum period should be predicated in the law establishing the court. Say you shouldn't go beyond 4 weeks, for example. You should be court of summary trial, so that you amend section 230 to 304 of the Constitution that talks about the judicature, and then insulate these very important courts. We need a very serious court or an agency to penalize wrongdoers during elections. It is refusal or flagrant scene of crimes and criminalities being perpetrated without commensurate penalties. Unfortunately, under section 36 of the Constitution, our Constitution is more in favor of giving leverage to criminals rather than giving them very severe and serious penalties. So government should be up and doing to show that yes, there is law and order. We are prepared to beat, apprehend, detain, and sentence to Golgotha all those criminalities that are going on in the country. So long we allow the culture of people to commit crimes and then go away like that, so long it is unfortunate, we will not get it right. 2023 is a turning point, because it's a point whereby the president said that he will not interfere in the elections, and then the international communities are putting eyes to see how well his non-interference will be, how well equally will the political power players will succeed in really entrenching peaceful, credible, acceptable, and universally acclaimed well-balanced election. We look forward to seeing that. But definitely the government should be prepared to really penalize wrongdoers if we want deterrence regarding people who are thinking of perpetrating trouble. We should be prepared to nip them on the boat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your very extensive thoughts.
Thank you.
So what last words do you have to say to everyone watching in the light of the upcoming elections?
Yes, everybody should really see himself as a bearer of franchise in the conduct of 2023 election. Everybody should know that it is little drops of water that makes a mighty ocean. It is your own individual civic responsibility. Everybody should think of himself as a stakeholder. Your one vote can make Omar. For example, in the case of Sokoto state election in 2019, it was won by a margin of just about 342 votes out of millions of votes. So your own individual vote counts. Do whatever you can to secure voters' card. Do whatever you can to make sure that you are part of the annals of history in discharging your own civil obligation by going to vote. Make sure anybody coming to campaign in your area, you sit him down and get him into signing a contract regarding what are you going to bring new into our society, and then you should be able to be tickling them from time to time. You should be able to be asking questions regarding the quality of governance you are getting, whether it's satisfactory or it's not satisfactory. And then government responsibilities should really be up and doing. Security agencies should be up and doing. INEC should be up and doing. Politicians should not think of politics as a rehabilitation center for criminals, because you see people going into politics simply because of the interest of money. It should be an era whereby politics should be seen as an incubation period whereby you matriculate competent citizens who will eventually graduate as statesmen.
Thank you very much, sir, for your extensive words to us today. We beseech all citizens to hold fast as we count down to the 2023 elections. Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode. I am Christine Telfa, your host on this segment.